And then we're all turning and looking around going, whose tent is this? And when we're all saying this, he just suddenly appeared. And he's like, well, it's my tent. And who are you? And why are you here? So he's questioning us. And we're like all just still flabbergasted of how he stepped out of nowhere, which I can only describe as I saw somebody step through a portal. I don't know how else to describe it. It was just really, really, really incredible. And
wow.
We just kind of sorted things out, and he's like, well, why are you here to do a ceremony? And I was getting the feeling that he was there to protect the land and protect the space. And we told him what we were there for, and he assessed us and we assessed him because, you know, we're also like, who is this stranger? And he's a little bit different. And, you know, we're trying to assess his intent, and he's trying to assess our intent. It was very, very interesting. But he said, you know, okay, you know, once we described it to him, and we then went ahead and did the ceremony. It did not feel appropriate to invite him into the sacred circle. You know, we knew who was doing what part, but he just sat outside the circle right by his tent and watched, which, you know, kind of put him like kind of back behind me. And another thing that was a real interesting throwback, he was smoking cigarettes. I don't think I can name a person in the state of California who smokes cigarettes in this day and age. It was just another really odd throwback. So really, really interesting experience. We had a beautiful ceremony and just put a lot of things in the fire that no longer served us, and just really gave thanks to Mother Earth and asked for the elements to balance better again, and for appropriate rainfall to be restored. And we were there probably about 2 hours, and the shaman stayed longer than us to make sure that the fire was completely out. We had a large amount of water with us to put it out, and he was also he built it in such a way so a lot of smoke didn't go up, because that would have concerned people too, to be seeing smoke on the mountain in a time of such drought. But it just was really, really an amazing experience. And one of the people who was with us is a spiritual teacher, and when we were most of the way through the ceremony, she looked over at our new friend who had just materialized, and she looked at him and she said, "Thank you for having held the energy in the space for us to be able to do this work. And I see you're from the 32nd dimension." And he just looked at her and he just smiled and he kind of gave a half bow. And he said, "Yes, that's all you need to know, and you're correct."
Wow. That
okay.
Is profound.
Okay. Really, really
well,
interesting.
Wendy, you had such incredible experiences on the West Coast with your past life pilgrimages. Tell us about the Boston and Salem area that you've had past lives there, and I think you're planning another trip back to Boston, actually.
I am. I've just had such a depth to the memories and the experiences with Plymouth Plantation in the 1600s, and with my past life there as Anne Warren Little, who had immigrated over from England as a 12-year-old girl on one of the Mayflower ships in 1623, and also several native lives there. So, and in Salem too, a little bit north. That was my immediate past life, a real quick turnaround after the life as Anne Warren to be up in Salem just in time for those dreadful Salem witchcraft trials. So I want to go back. I lived in Boston for 10 years or so, but I wasn't awake at the time. So I've gone back and done a pilgrimage there. And it was really funny how I got there. It was a frequent flyer ticket, and I just kept trying to route myself. I was trying to go to my dad's in Quebec, and I couldn't get a flight to Montreal, and I couldn't get a flight to New York, and I just was trying to get as close to Dad's as I could to then, have him either pick me up or rent a car to go the rest of the way or whatever with my free ticket. And it only kept going to Boston, was the only place I could get it. And it probably took me a week or two, which is so funny in hindsight to realize, I'm supposed to go back to Boston. So that's what led to me doing a past life pilgrimage there a few years ago, when I did find my own a marker with my name on it, thanking my husband and I as early founders of the town of Marshfield, which is just north of Plymouth. So just lots to explore there, and I want to go back because I can feel there's just still more to understand and to pick up on. And I'm really drawn to the transcendentalists, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, and Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. So I want to go back to Concord, which interestingly is where my former husband was living when I first met him. So I've certainly been to Concord many times. But again, I just didn't have this opening of my mind and abilities at that time. So I want to go back to it and just explore it with kind of new eyes.
It's exciting, and I know you're looking forward to it. You're also planning a trip to London.
Yes.
Tell us about that as well.
What's coming up was the precipitator to that was I'm in this wonderful Facebook group for indie writers, for independently published writers, and one of their missions to help indies is they hold writers' conferences at different places in the world. And there's going to be one in Edinburgh, in Scotland. And the minute I saw that conference, I thought, oh my gosh, this just has my name all over it. Not just to go to that conference and to go to Scotland, but to go to London, which I did go to briefly as a kid. But I just have so many lives in that area. And my guides have been asking me probably for 4 or 5 years, go to Glastonbury. And I just, that trip just had not come together. So all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this could all come together in 1 2-week trip. And do the writers' conference for a week in Edinburgh, which is so wonderfully priced. And this group, it's called 20 Books to 50K. They just put a lot of effort into running these conferences at cost and making them affordable. So we're just going to have really simple accommodations at the University of Edinburgh in the dorms in the summer when it's not occupied. So just real simple, get to go back and be a college student and rough it a little bit, to a room and shower down the hall. But it's my way of getting back to London, which will tie into several lives. So I'll just be real interested what shows up with that, and to get to Glastonbury, to get to that number one place on my list. And then definitely Edinburgh. And if there's time, I'd love to go to Glasgow and Stratford-upon-Avon. But there's only so much time in 2 weeks, and I'm not going to be renting a car. I want to do trains and just really get the feel for that. And people have warned me you can't plan your itinerary like what the Brits call the typical American breakneck tour, where you're just we think of driving and it's like, going quickly from place to place. And they're like, no. You need to kind of slow down your agenda and your itinerary and not try and hit so many places if you're not driving. So I took their good advice, and we'll go probably three cities rather than the 5 I was planning.
Wendy, I understand you also have another project, Regression Healing 2. Joe and Marilyn concerning Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe, and that this is going to involve Yankee Stadium in New York. Tell us a little about that.
I would love to go to Martinez, California, where Joe DiMaggio grew up and spent much of his life and had a home. And he's just got such a rich history there, as well as, of course, Yankee Stadium, because of DiMaggio having played his entire career for the Yankees. So that's just really calling my name. I'm very open to how those trips might present and might just come up. And I had a really fun experience. I went to see the film Green Book recently, which is just a great movie. And one of the opening scenes is the Copacabana Club. And I just kept looking at it, and it's like, I know that club. I was in that club. And I don't mean this lifetime. I've never been there as me. But I know that club. So it was interesting to see it in a movie, because movies, television programs, books, music, all those things can just trigger us into remembering past lives, and we can feel that energy. And it can also give us wonderful clues and hints of places that might be very useful for us to go visit and just see what turns up. So that's what was interesting about that. So yeah, I don't feel a need. I've been to LA. I mean, I'm open to going there again, but I don't feel a need to go to Hollywood and go to LA and to do the Maryland tour, so to speak. It's, for me, it kind of comes from the other side. It comes more from Joe's perspective, and Joe also spent significant time in Florida. So interestingly, in Hollywood, Florida, which I think is kind of funny, just have it be the other Hollywood. So those are definitely on my radar, as is Egypt. I'm just very, very called to Egypt and Jerusalem. So those are on my wish list of pilgrimages I want to make. Hawaii